here to talk about memes. Our presentation is Memecraft, narrative dynamics in crypto. So what we want to talk about, of course, like coming to Devcon, at least for me, it's been a little bit overwhelming. It's been definitely a good thing. I love seeing all my friends. A lot of my friends, though, I know through the internet. And of course, being on the internet, the way that we often relate to each other is through memes. And so memes are basically very fundamental to the creation of culture in crypto. But kind of the thing that we wanted to talk about on top of not just saying that memes are awesome and great, but also to like dig a bit deeper into what they are and what kind of powers they can project. So we want to talk about some analytical frameworks to help us understand and have a deeper understanding of memes, their use, and the power that they can have without us necessarily knowing it. And so just very quickly to remind ourselves the origins of memes, it comes actually from Richard Dawkins. I don't know if you remember the time in the 2010s when everyone was having their atheist phase. That came from Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion. But before he was an atheist, or he might have been an atheist then, I don't know. He was a biologist who studied genetics. And what he was looking into in the 70s was kind of the ways in which cultural information is spread through imitation. And this is what he termed memes. So he used basically the kind of structure of the word gene and combined it with the Greek word mimema and created memes in the 1970s. And so he conceived of this as a parallel to biological genes in which there is a kind of like natural selection of which types of bits of cultural information exist and which ones survive. And he refers to it as a unit of cultural information, which I think is interesting. And so what I want to kind of like unpack a little bit on that is that I think this term as a unit of cultural information is a little bit misleading. Wrong button. And that I would actually argue that memes are bundles. There are like packages of information with different layers of meaning, vocabulary, actions in which put all together, the more you can pack inside of a meme, usually the more powerful it is, the more that it like resonates with someone as some sort of action, meaning, vocabulary that they use, that they resonate. So memes are not discrete objects. You can still use the word unit, but a unit of cultural information is usually cultural information being the richer it is, the more powerful it is a combination of all these different things. And so a meme really hits if you can just get all this information and in just like a single image, for example, at least when we're talking about the context of internet memes. And so I think what's also on top of this interesting to note is that memes have a kind of like, they can be like doubly as good if you can also get very, what's the word, like meta about a particular topic. And so we can see like, in the crypto world, Bitcoiners be like, I'm in it for the technology. Like this is something that has several layers of meaning that like transcend not just the image itself as being funny because the guy is wearing jewelry, but it's also because I think it unconsciously or subconsciously elicits this kind of like character of a person, or this archetype of a person that exists in which they live inside of a system of capitalism in which they need to project a particular ideology in order to justify their accumulation of capital. And the rest of these are plenty of different examples. I really like this one. My parents in their 20s, I bet he'll grow up to do great things. Me, I trade meme coins full time. I think it kind of, elicits the kind of like right observation of like financial nihilism in the world and how people are kind of trading meme coins full time to make money. So it is like several layers of different types of contexts and meanings in which like make a meme something that is quite powerful. And so I'll leave it to, I believe, Beth to give us some analytical tools to understand this a bit more.
Hi. So Yeah, in thinking through this, I thought it was really interesting, as a person who's often responsible for managing social media on Twitter and being way too immersed in crypto Twitter than is maybe good for my mental health. I think it's really interesting to really see how people are so often frantically coalescing around the specific moment as this is the time that we're going to make this thing happen to go to the moon, or now, if we make enough memetic force, then we'll push ourselves into the next bull market, et cetera. And so I think it's really interesting to think of Walter Benjamin's concept of Jetztzeit, which is this idea of right now is this particular moment that has transformative potential within it and exist in a context of unfolding moments that we are all experiencing together and shaping a shared reality and intersubjectivity. So yeah, finding our friends in late stage capitalism as we try to figure out how to navigate all of this together. And also wanted to make the point that a lot of the frameworks that we're thinking about here are drawing on concepts from 100 years ago when people were originally thinking about these kind of structuralist terminologies, but history is repeating itself or rhyming with greater vigor all the time. So I think it's really interesting to think in terms of some of these patterns. Yeah, how do you do this?
The green button, the top one.
Yeah, so just to go a little bit deeper in concepts from Walter Benjamin, I might butcher these German words for my German friends that I see sitting in the audience, but Erfahrung versus Erlebnis is two ways of categorizing experience that I think are super useful for thinking about what is it that we are experiencing together through these memetic structures that that we're co-creating, basically. So my understanding of it is that Erfahrung is the kind of tacit knowledge, lived experience that you have, whether you are, a node validator yourself, deeply involved in, coding infrastructure, deeply involved in doing the work that I do in terms of setting up events and doing, community weaving across the space, the knowledge that you come to understand through gossip networks and through just seeing patterns repeating over time, versus the Erlebnis, which is more the experience that you have from, reading through crypto Twitter, hearing about, stuff that is happening on the news as it filters a perception of what's going on in crypto, or just watching the markets and not thinking about the greater depths that's happening underneath. But I think that in our space especially, and at this particular moment in space and time that we're at Devcon, it's really interesting to think about the relationship between these two things, because in order to have the full context of the lived experience and gain that tacit knowledge in a deep and meaningful way, then you also need to have this more surface level noise that you're navigating to get the full picture. So I think that the way that memetic forces work in our space is really interesting in looping these two together. And just to give some examples of what I mean by that, I think starter packs, for example, are a memetic, memetic form that where you look at this, and it's like I maybe either deeply understand what each of these things are and it's hilarious, or don't understand what they are, but then you start to understand that they move together in a conceptual bundle, as Josh was saying. And so I think memes ability as an art form to link concepts and create an aesthetic container is super interesting. Similarly, in terms of what we were saying about memes that form on top of each other with these levels of meaning, I found this in my screenshots yesterday, and I was like, that is very true. It's interesting, to understand what this is saying, you have to understand the meme in the first place, understand the structures behind tarot, and then also this idea of a cyclical, linear but cyclical flow through ordered information that contained not only in the reactions that are happening in that meme, but also what a taro spread might look like there. So, and I think, this idea of information being conveyed in a spread obviously, applies to looking at markets, et cetera, as well. And Josh can talk about this one.
Yeah, so just wanted to, when we were discussing this, give a really practical example of how this manifests itself in crypto, in which then we begin to identify as a part of crypto culture. And I think one of the easiest ones, or the first ones that a lot of people get exposed to, is this concept of hodling, the holding your crypto, which of course has its own history I won't get into, but the way that it happens is that you buy crypto, you hold it, you read about hodling. Of course, crypto is very volatile, so the market is going up and down. When it goes down, you begin to oh my gosh, should I sell, should I sell? You don't sell, you keep it, you hodl, and then you're reminded that you hodled when the market is down, because you go to crypto forums and whatever else, and you're like, oh, I hodled, I took part in crypto culture, and now I can identify very quickly with other people in crypto culture. The feedback loop is quite short. And so this short feedback loop is what then hooks you inside of crypto culture, and now you are a crypto bro. Welcome.
Yeah, and to lead into our next point, there also the power of naming a particular behavior. So before it's like, okay, well, I'm choosing not to sell my coins, but then as you become deeper embedded in the ecosystem, you learn there was a name for what I did. It's hodling, and that makes me a hodler. So, and the last example that I wanted to give, I thought that it was really interesting to see this concept of finite and infinite games, a big crowd pleaser in general in our space, but I feel like it is getting brought up more and more frequently in this conference in particular, which I think is really fantastic as a way for framing the world building that we do together and capturing the evolving landscape. So yesterday I was attending a talk where I had directly brought it up, and I was really happy to hear that that was a explicit thought process behind the concept of the infinite garden that we are all cultivating. Leading into that, it was a nerd point that I liked, that it's a great way of framing as well Wittgenstein's language game. So as we were just talking about with these different ways of framing construction of identity, construction of behavior, understanding of the system dynamics that you're operating in, and the narratives that we're constructing through how we convey information through words and images. I think this is really interesting. These are some of the examples that he gave, whether we're using language to report an event, pretend to do something, switch between languages, all of these different ways that we engage with our world as mediated by language are ways that we are constructing a reality, and also that we're conveying information between one another in a way that creates intersubjectivity and shared perception. So kind of my first point with I guess how that leads into how we can think about how we are operating in a meme apparatus. The rules, constraints, and outcomes of language games are continually evolving in a feedback loop of shaping and being shaped by cultural norms and behaviors of their players. And talk about
So some of the memes that we all know and maybe love. I think going a little bit chronologically on the evolution of memes a little bit, it first starts off, being entangled in crypto culture, in which we have this early proliferation of memes about taking an action related to market dynamics, right? We hodl is the one example that I gave earlier, but also sometimes we get wrecked. Sometimes, we have diamond hands or we have paper hands because we sold. We see the movement of the market and prices go to the moon, or we get rug pulled. With this, not your keys, not your crypto, I think is something that is also another kind of related to tacit experience of holding your keys in crypto or being on a centralized exchange and being warned about it. Digital gold being a type of investment narrative. This is kind of like where it starts. And these memes themselves in total may move capital in a particular direction, but it's kind of like broadly in crypto, and it's related to like the actions that you are taking in response to market dynamics. But I think what's been interesting to kind of see is that with the introduction of Ethereum is that now the memes have become much more sophisticated, right? We've had this Cambrian explosion of different mechanisms that are now available to us, all these financial primitives which have elicited immense flows of capital into specific projects and applications. So, you know, an infamous one was 3.3, where people just kind of, let's all collaborate together into a Ponzi scheme. Or WAGMI, retro PGF, quadratic funding, all of these different terms are used to solicit investment or movement of capital into a particular place. So it's not only, whereas hodling and getting wrecked and going to the moon was about like crypto broadly, now we're getting like, we are turning in on ourselves and creating this loop, concentric loop inside to where we are now directing capital within the crypto ecosystem in various places based on the movement of memes and their proliferation. And now we have reached in the recent kind of events in the United States with the election to the point where memes are being used by people with a lot of influence like Elon Musk, and so that these flows of capital are capitalizing on their investments of taking part in meme culture like Elon Musk did, in order to influence government policy directly. So Elon Musk simply talked about Doge over and over again over the years in order to ingratiate himself over time, and through his power and influence and having so many followers and having so much money and owning Twitter, he was able to become a part of the meme to the point to where he can now post about the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, as a way to probably, my guess, is bring forth a lot of cuts into government programs, and who knows what else is going to come out of that. But so now we have this situation where big capital is very much a part of meme creation and meme spread and the spread of narrative, and this is something that we should all take into account and be aware of.
And yeah, that gets into the final point that, you know, thinking about the flow of these different memetic frameworks and how they very directly impact human behavior, market behavior. Those behaviors then have impact on the client, on the climate, and all of our ability in the space to have stable work, and all of these effects that happen. And so I think it's really important in our space to think about explicitly how do memes harness identity, intersubjectivity, and ideology to create, reinforce, and reproduce dynamics of power and control. So just, you know, to bring up to white guys from 50 years ago, then I think it's really useful to think about, from Foucault's perspective, this control that is mediated through societies based on access to knowledge, and this feedback loop between having greater knowledge, you know, information asymmetry by design, understanding a deeper awareness of patterns that are happening, and very actively directing the discourse so that certain concepts gain power and start directing capital, as Josh was mentioning, and also changing behavior at scale. And I think it's also really important to remember in our space which narratives are being pushed and for who and why. So for example, if everyone is ascribing to this ideology around decentralization, thinking critically about, is this something that is being used for an extractive purpose, even though it's something that on a surface level we are all agreeing with in a friendly way. And that gets to my final point about, in Web3 or in crypto, we are often reconstructing and reproducing in our emergent way existing methods of control through apparatuses of the state and of capital that may be, as I've heard a lot in different people's talks, that they may be left, the traditional world to escape these things or recreate them in their own image. And I think it's really important to think about what are the ideological apparatuses that we are reproducing. So our final point is to meme safely, be aware of information asymmetry, be aware of what flows of power and control you are participating in, and also send us some dank memes if you see any. And if you want to mention our last point.
Oh yeah, and then if you like the things that we've said in our words, we have a lot more words. We started a sci-fi called Catabasis, where we are exploring some of the common themes in the crypto world. So yeah, thank you. And there's a QR code in case you wanna go look it up now. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Beth and Joshua. We have had a few questions come in during your talk. So let's start with the first one. Besides being perennially online on crypto Twitter, how do you stay on top of crypto memes?
Do you want me to do that? So yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend pacing yourself if you're going to be perennially online on crypto Twitter, because it can take a toll on your mental health and your soul. But I think for me, it's mainly about kind of the larger point here is by having context about the kind of like larger trends and things that are happening within the economy. I think it gives a better insight into what memes are being pushed and why they're being pushed, and trying to understand like who are the main players in pushing that meme. So it's not, I don't think it's just about staying on top of memes, but it's about staying on top of like, where are the expectations of the flow of capital in order to understand like, is this a meme that I should take part in, or is this a meme that is simply actually reinforcing my subjugation to various forces? So, what I'd say.
Oh, okay. So I think with regards to Gen Z, I mean, for me, as an elder in relation to Gen Z, I like my perception of you guys or them is that folks that are entering the workforce for the first time and starting to mature are going through, their version of when we were like doggos and BuzzFeed, and like, what are the ways in which you dissociate and which are the ways that you choose to process existing under capitalism. So I would say I like the Gen Z like absurdism that is coming through things. I'm a bit concerned about like how a lot of people are embracing Andrew Tate type stuff and how that is proliferating among that generation, and it's something I'm curious to understand more about. So if you have some alpha leaks about why Gen Z are turning into trad folks at a high rate, please let me know.
Maybe I would just warn against like being naively optimistic about going into the workforce, I would say, and trying to have a larger view of the movement of capital so that you can protect yourself in the long term from like what is inevitably going to come in a market is that there is going to be a downturn. There will be a bear market. And so, yeah, just to be aware of those things.
All right, the next question is, do you own any meme coins? But I think maybe more importantly, what we can also talk about is, what are your thoughts on meme coins, especially in relation to everything that you've discussed?
Maybe I can take that one. So, I mean, not a financial advisor. I think I have a very small investment in meme coins just because it's a way to help me keep track of them. But yeah, and we wanted to add meme coins into the presentation, but it was starting to get a little bit too long. But I think when it comes to meme coins, for me, what is even more like crazy about them is that they're not just meme coins. They are like financialized memes. They are memes in which like flows of capital are moving in and out based on the appearance of memes maybe in the media or elsewhere. So, and I think this has been quite fundamental to, I think, the accumulation of power and capital by Elon Musk lately, and in the previous years. And also now I think that strategy is proliferating throughout. I think what people are, I think, underestimating about Elon Musk and how he's been able to basically take hold of the narrative through his not just purchase of Twitter, but also just having a big account and just simply being, doing more or less whatever he wants, is that he is able to not only make money for himself, but make money for his acolytes, or make money for the people who follow him. Is that if you are someone who simply follows Elon Musk and just like follows what he says and like following his mention of Doge, and you buy Doge coins whenever he mentions Doge, and then you make money off of it, then you're gonna love the guy. You're gonna follow him into battle because he's the guy that like made you rich, or he's a guy who is like making you money when you're broke. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Joshua and Beth. Let's put our hands together for them.